of our natural beauty and the optimism and promise that buoyed so many of us during those early years of democracy. This has been increasingly replaced by a new feeling, a nuwe gevoel. And that feeling is despair. Despair. In Butterworth in the Eastern Cape, I recently experienced that despair as a husband myself and a father of 3 young girls, when I visited a community where a single mother had ended the lives of her 3 children and herself because she could no longer afford to feed her family. I feel despair every time I return to Durban, my hometown where I grew up and started my political career. A city that was once the tourist hotspot in Africa has been reduced to ashes with garbage all over the place. En daar's soveel, ek moet die regte woord gebruik hier, riool op die strande, dat mense kan nie eers daar swem op Durban se strande. And I fight not to be overwhelmed when I visit Johannesburg, once the beating industrial heart and commercial heart of our country. But it's now been reduced by the looters in the ANC, in the EFF, and the Patriotic Alliance to a place where the councillors spend millions on bodyguards for themselves, while the residents no longer have drinking water in their taps. Where commuters drive on crumbling and exploding roads, where people are burnt to death in houses because the fire service has collapsed. For millions of our citizens in our country, the story of South Africa has become a story of despair. But fortunately, that's not the whole story. Because while the 8 ANC-led provinces crumble, daar is een plek in hierdie land waar die son nog skyn op ons mense. En waar daar is 'n toekoms vir ons mense en ons kinders. Waar ons het hoop vir die toekoms. And that place of hope is this DA-run Western Cape province. This is the Western Cape of good hope. Now let's be clear. Hope is not the same as perfection. And we've still got a lot to do to bring dignity and services and opportunity to every single resident in this province. And that is why our Premier candidate is going to tell you in a few minutes about the incredible plans he has to take this province to the next level by creating jobs, by tackling load shedding, and by combating crime. But even as we have much more still to do, this province represents for South Africa the last hope, because the Western Cape, mense is bietjie pap. Miskien moet ek Kaal teruggee op hierdie plek. Because the Western Cape works. And if the Western Cape works, that means that we can make the rest of South Africa work. Yes. And that's what gives me hope. But that is why I'm here to speak to you today. And I need to speak frankly to the people of the Western Cape. To tell you that if you do not often travel outside of this province, you cannot even begin to realize how much you stand to lose if you don't vote for the DA in this election. If you've lived in the Western Cape for the last 15 years, you've probably come to take it for granted that you drive on roads without potholes, that you have clean drinking water from your taps, and that your local taxes are not being stolen. But let me tell you, if you've lived in another part of South Africa over the past 15 years, your roads have crumbled, your taps have run dry, and the taxes that you paid would have all been looted. So perhaps it's understandable then that amidst the security provided by 15 years of strong, stable, working government, it might be tempting to believe deep down that the total collapse that we see happening across the rest of South Africa could never happen here in the Western Cape. But falling into that trap of complacency will spell disaster for the Western Cape, just like it has done everywhere else. And I have news for any voter in the Western Cape who's forgotten how important it is to vote for the DA. Ek het 'n sterk boodskap vir julle vandag. Not only can this province collapse into chaos, just like the rest of the country, the first signs of that decline have already arrived on the shores of the Western Cape. And if you don't believe me, get in your car and take a little drive up to a place called Knysna. Ken julle mense waar Knysna is? Like all governments with an outright majority, Knysna was once a stable, well-run municipality that was bringing in tourists and making sure that everybody there flourished and prospered. It was a showpiece for accountability and good governance. But what happened? The people of Knysna got comfortable. They said, well, it doesn't really matter about who you vote for anymore because, nothing's going to change here in Knysna. Ons stel nie belang in die politiek nie. Dis iemand anders se werk om te bekommer oor die politiek. But things have changed in Knysna. And things have changed quickly in Knysna. Because far too many voters in the last election stayed at home. And the DA fell just below 50% in Knysna. And that meant that the door was opened for the nightmare of the people of Knysna to begin. And within a matter of months, not years, a matter of months, the coalition of corruption between the ANC, the EFF, and the Patriotic Alliance unleashed looting and destruction on Knysna like the scale of which has never been seen before. Residents who were used to living in a clean town were now met with mountains of garbage piled up all over the town. Residents of Knysna who never thought twice when they used to open their taps and out would come clean, wonderful drinking water, suddenly discovered for weeks hulle het 'n dooie liggaam, a dead body, floating in the water reservoir there. For 2 weeks, the main people of Knysna were forced to drink water that had been contaminated by a decomposing corpse that was so fraught that when they tried to pull it out of the reservoir, Premier Wendy tells me that die arm het afgebreek. Dis wat die mense van Knysna, dis waar hulle drink water. Now, the people of Knysna thought that it could never happen to them. They thought that they'd never be subjected to the living hell that is life under a coalition of corruption. But it happened to them precisely because they deluded themselves. They got too comfortable that this would never happen to them. It happened to them because they split the vote there. And they gave their vote to these claimed popcorn parties that pop up every election, and then they froth like popcorn the day afterwards. And they split the vote there, and they opened the door for this coalition of corruption to come in. It happened to them because they got fooled by these opportunistic mercenary parties that care only about themselves and their leaders. Hulle gee nie om vir die mense op die grondvlak nie. And it's not only Knysna. Dis die Parel, jy kry baie goeie mooi skoon water in die Parel. Dankie Drakensteen. Dankie Dia. The people of Beaufort West, go and ask them. They were promised Dubai in the desert. When last were you in Beaufort West? It looks more like the desert in Dubai. Daar's geen Dubai nie, daar's nie woestyn. Die mense se toekoms was opgevreet by hierdie hongerrampokkers wat ingekom en al die mense se geld gesteel het. Het julle dit nodig hier in die Weskaap? Wou jy dit hê dat hierdie rampokkers met die regering wees in hierdie wonderlike provinsie? Let me tell you, unlike the rest of the country, the biggest enemy of progress and opportunity here in the Western Cape is not an ANC government desperately clinging to power, like they're doing in the other 8 provinces. The biggest risk to continued progress, to continued opportunity, and building a better future for all of us in this province is complacency and mercenary parties like the PA, like Rise Mzansi, like Good, and like the NCC. Because they're not interested in taking on the ANC. Why aren't they campaigning in Limpopo and the Northwest Province? Why are they coming to the Western Cape? Why are they coming here to try and unseat the only government that created 300,000 jobs last year? Why are they coming here to the only government that arrested through its LEAP program over 27,000 criminals in the last year? Why are they coming here to an economy that's working, with schools that work, that give opportunities for more people, with public transport systems that work? Why here? Why not they focusing their attention on the real enemy of progress in South Africa, which is the ANC? And I've thought about this, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why. It's because they know that there's nothing left to loot in the other 8 provinces. Alles is opgeëet. Daar's net geld hier in die Weskaap. The rest of the country is bankrupt. That's why they want to come to the Western Cape, because they want to get their hands on the budget and the money that's been well looked after by our government here under Alan Winde and his team in the Western Cape. And let me tell you, if they get that right, it's going to be the biggest bank heist you've ever seen. And within a few months, die geld sal opwees hier in hierdie provinsie. En dit gaan nie oor dienslewering nie, oor 'n beter toekoms vir mense. Daai geld, net soos in die 8 ander provinsies, sal in die agter beursie van hierdie vet politiese vetkette wees. Dit sal die probleem wees. But I'm happy to tell you that there's one thing now standing in their way. There's one thing standing in the path that's stopping them. And you know what that one thing is? That thing is a DA outright victory here in the Western Cape on the 29th of May. That's what's going to be the antidote. That's how you keep your future safe. That's how you secure a future for your children. A DA outright majority. And we must never allow these opportunists in these small parties. As iemand na jou huis kom en vir jou vertel dat hulle net sal beklei vir mense van 'n spesifieke velkleur, van 'n spesifieke area of van 'n spesifieke agtergrond, sê vir hulle om te skoot. Skoot van my huis af, ons wou nie luister nie. Because parties that talk like that are only interested in dividing us. They want to divide us on skin color. They want to divide us and make us fight with each other. And they want to split the vote so that they can come in with the coalition of corruption and steal your future away from you. So I say never, never, and never again must we allow corrupt parties to divide our people in the Western Cape. We must stand strong, not as white people, not as swart mense, nie as bruin mense nie, maar as blou mense hier, wat 'n blou toekoms vir ons land wou hê. Because we know that the eenheid, the unity in our province here in the Western Cape is what makes us strong. And we are united in our diversity. Just like the Constitution says to us, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in their diversity. And look at this hall today. This is breathed life into that constitutional paradigm there. Look at the people around you. black, white, Indian, colored. Not here because of our skin colors, but because we all wear a blue t-shirt and we want a blue future and we want a blue government here in the Western Cape. Because just like the Springboks, here in the Western Cape, we're stronger when we are together. And that's why, because we're stronger when we're together, we set about forming a multi-party charter to be able to reduce the ANC's majority and to usher in a new era of accountable government here in the country. And the best way to protect this province is to give us an outright majority here in the Western Cape. Dieselfde spulpartye wat ons wil verdeel, gaan ook vir jou probeer oortuig dat die Wes-Kaap sal aanhou werk sonder die DA. Hulle sê dit sal werk sonder die DA. Hulle praat twak. Hulle praat twak. Sonder 'n volstreekse meerderheid hier in die Wes-Kaap vir die Demokratiese Alliansie, sal die Wes-Kaap se verval net dieselfde gemors wees as elke ander plek in die land waar die korrupte ANC, EFF en PA in beheer is. At the end of the day, the choice in this election is a very simple one. And all of the complexity of politics in this election and all these parties and all this noise, the choice is simple. You can either elect an outright DA majority here in the Western Cape, or you will have no water in your taps, just like the rest of the country. You can either elect a DA outright majority here in the Western Cape, or you will lose the 300,000 new jobs that were created here, just like the rest of the country. You can either elect a DA outright government here in the Western Cape, or you will have potholed roads, rubbish piling up, and dead bodies floating in your drinking water. You can either elect a DA outright majority in the Western Cape, or you will get a coalition of corruption between the ANC and the EFF and the PA that will destroy this province, just like it's destroyed the rest of the country. So as hierdie verkiesing nader kom, gaan daar 'n klomp skurke wees in ons woonbuurte. Hulle sal rondhardloop en hulle sal probeer om vir jou vuurhoutjies te gee om hierdie provinsie op die brand te steek. Want hulle wat die Wes-Kaap sien brand net soos die res van die land. Maar wanneer daai mense is daar by jou stoep en probeer om jou daai vuurhoutjies te gee, onthou wat ons ma's gesê aan ons tot ons kleins af leer. Moenie met vuur speel nie, want jy gaan net jou eie huis afbrand. Don't play with fire by allowing political mercenaries in this election. A vote for the DA is win, win, win. Firstly, a vote for the DA in the Western Cape is a vote to secure an increased majority to carry on the work that we've been doing. Secondly, a vote for the DA in this province is a vote for a new national government with a strong anchor party in the DA. And small parties like the PA and others are kept out where they belong by the agterdeur. And thirdly, a vote for the DA in this province is a vote to keep the doomsday coalition between the ANC and the EFF out. Now, if you still had any doubt about this doomsday coalition and the clear and present danger it reflects for our country and our future, all of that doubt was removed just this week when Julius Malema confirmed that the EFF will give their vote to the ANC if they don't have a majority, subject to a number of conditions. And the first one of those conditions, you know what it was? The first condition was to make Floyd Shivambu the finance minister. My magtig mense, the man who looted VBS Bank as the finance minister. It'll make Des van Rooyen look like child's play. The doomsday coalition that I warned you all about, for those of you at Congress in April last year, is now underway and taking shape before our eyes. And under the Doomsday Coalition, with Floyd Shivambu as the finance minister, the EFF will unleash its destructive policies and take our country down the exact road to Venezuela, to Zimbabwe, and every other failed country in this world. And do we want that here in the Western Cape? Do we want it in South Africa? I say no. No. They will expropriate your house and private property. They will nationalize and collapse banks, mines, and industry. And they will cause the rand to crash, making food even more expensive than it is already, turning South Africa into a wasteland, just like those countries where those policies have all been tried. So, I'm giving you the medicine, the antidote to prevent the Doomsday Coalition from taking place. And it's also simple, just like the choice in this election. On the 29th of May, go out and vote for the DA. Vote for the DA to keep the Cape's hope alive, to keep the despair of the Doomsday Coalition out of the Western Cape. And I can think of no better person. I can think of no better man to carry that mission forward than the incumbent Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde. En when I think of Alan Winde, dit laat my onthou aan daai wonderlike gedig van Jan F. Seleer. Ek hou van 'n man wat sy man kan staan. Ek hou van 'n arm wat 'n slag kan ontslaan. 'n oog wat nie wyk, wat 'n baars kan kyk. En 'n wil wat so vas soos 'n klipsteen staan. Dis ons premier, dis Alan Winde. And let me tell you, I have full confidence in Alan Winde because I know he's going to take this province to even new heights. Based on his proven track record, unlike these lightweights and no-hopers that you see their posters going up and the next day in the wind, they're gone. Alan Winde is a man who can stand. Alan Winde is a man who stands firm. Alan Winde is a man with a track record. And you know, I saw today, you may have noticed, die wind waai vandag. Die wind waai hier in die Weskaap. And it's windy today because even Mother Nature wants Alan Winde to be the premier here in this province. So, if you want to keep the ANC and the EFF and the PA out, if you want a future for yourselves and your children, if you want to be able to build a South Africa that works for all the people, if you want a government that's on your side, not working against you, if you want jobs in our communities, if you want to keep the lights on, if you want to keep your children in a decent school with a decent education, if you want to have a clinic and a hospital where you go to be healed, then there's one thing you need to do, and that's on the 29th of May, go out and vote for the DA. Because a vote for the DA is win, win, win. Hou by die blou, hou die Weskaap blou, en saam sal ons land red.
The Western Cape works. While people are losing jobs across South Africa, in the Western Cape, we are creating the environment that more and more people get jobs. Hundreds of thousands of people are getting jobs in this province. We have the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa, 10 percentage points lower than the South African average of 32%. As a result of the DA's pro-growth approach to job creation over the past 5 years, the province made the largest net employment contribution to jobs in South Africa. This means that nearly 4 out of every 5 jobs created in the country were created in the Western Cape. We know that without a job, there can be no dignity and well-being in our communities. That is why the DA will keep growing to create a growing, inclusive economy that creates jobs for all in the Western Cape. I know that safety is a key concern of our residents, and that is why when I took office 5 years ago, I introduced the Western Cape Safety Plan. That plan deploys LEAP officers directly to murder hotspots in our province, and I'm super excited that 5 years later, we see a decline and a reduction in murder where those LEAP officers have been deployed. Our LEAP officers are deployed in the city of Cape Town in partnership with the city, but also across our rural areas alongside our K9 units. That is how we are building a safer Western Cape. The LEAP program, or Law Enforcement Advancement Plan, started in 2020 with 500 law enforcement officers deployed to 4 priority areas. Today, LEAP officers are deployed across 13 priority areas to tackle crime in our communities. And in partnership with the City of Cape Town, new technologies such as gunshot detection technology and eye in the sky have been introduced to bolster the effectiveness of LEAP operations. The result is that LEAP officers have made over 27,000 arrests and have taken more than 554 illegal firearms off our streets. There is still much work to be done. Safety cannot be achieved in isolation. Creating jobs has become as critical as fighting crime. A safe community is a prosperous one. 2023 has seen the worst load shedding in South Africa to date. The ANC-led national government have failed year after year to keep their promises. They cannot keep the lights on. In the Western Cape, we've established the Western Cape Energy Council. And our job is to make sure that we become energy resilient and end load shedding in our province. So far, we've invested between the provincial government and our local governments in the province 7 billion rand over the next 3 years to do just that. We will, level by level, reduce load shedding in our province to make sure that we can keep the lights on. Central to our plan is our Western Cape Energy Resilience Program, which is on track to support municipalities across the province to implement renewable energy projects. To date, this initiative has seen the successful request for information from more than 100 potential energy generation projects. In addition, the City of Cape Town is already reducing load shedding for residents by up to 2 stages. And over the next year, the city will spend 480 million rand on its 4 stages of load shedding protection plan. We know that the energy crisis in our country continues to severely hamper the Western Cape's economic growth. There is only one party with a vision and track record that governs effectively, and that party is the Democratic Alliance. The DA succeeds in government because it governs for the people. The Western Cape was rescued from the ANC back in 2009. And in that time, the DA has shown the rest of South Africa that it is possible to build a government that works. To keep delivering to the people of the Western Cape, we must make sure that every registered voter in the province comes out to vote on the 29th of May. And we must make sure that each person who votes for the DA. The Western Cape works. Vote to keep the Western Cape DA.